Welcome to Now.Chicago. I'm your host, Katie Kioski. We can all benefit from hearing stories of hope. Today, we are going to introduce you to 3 local inspirational people who have turned a bad situation into a better one. First, a local woman used her son's battle with cancer for good. She's now helping thousands of children with cancer in 17 states. Joining us now is the founder of the Pediatric Oncology Treasure Chest Foundation, Colleen Kizel, and her son, Martin. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Now, Colleen, the Treasure Chest Foundation is your brainchild, and it really stemmed from Martin's battle with cancer when he was a child. Tell us a little bit about what happened.
Well, it started 21 years ago. My son at the time was 7 years old, and he was diagnosed with cancer. The cancer he was diagnosed with was called leukemia, and he was about to endure 3.5 years of cancer treatment. But I'd like to say that my son was a perfectly healthy child with a perfect attendance in kindergarten and a perfect attendance in first grade until that dreadful day. And the reason I always like to say that is he was fine. It literally seemed to come out of the blue.
Come out of nowhere.
Yes, yes. And when we, my husband and I took him to the pediatrician, he ran a few tests and then asked us to follow him into a room that was full of a member of the clergy, doctors, nurses, social workers.
A surprising sight for you, I'm sure.
Yes, I mean, we expected it to be a flu, you know, something like a flu. And
Martin, what were you thinking at that point?
You know, I just woke up. I was sick. You know, I'd never really been sick a day in my life. I don't remember. I'd never missed a day of school. So, you know, yeah, I guess I was just expecting maybe an in and out. Here's some antibiotics.
Sure.
But no, my world got flipped upside down after that. I mean, there was one trip to the doctor, trip to the hospital, and diagnosis was leukemia. So.
And that was followed by rounds and rounds of treatments. How long did Martin have to go through those treatments?
Well, after we left the conference room, they had an ambulance transport team that transported us to a children's cancer treatment center. And that was when I learned the treatment would last 3.5 years long. I couldn't believe that, 3.5 years long. Of course, I was terrified. I would have done anything if it took 10 years, it didn't matter. But we embarked in this world of doctors and nurses and hospitalizations and chemotherapy and spinal taps and bone marrow aspirations and weekly visits to monthly visits to finally the completion of the treatment. And there's an unspoken word amongst the parents. If you make it through the treatment without a relapse, without a reoccurrence of the cancer, you look good. I mean, nobody told us Martin's going to be fine, but we knew deep down that the chemotherapy was working because he did not experience a relapse. So anyway, it was during that time that he went through 9 bone marrow aspirations, 18 spinal taps, chemotherapy, but they never, in my mind, you would have been wheeled into a surgical center, right? No, this is, you're laying on a bed in a outpatient clinic and they're cutting your bone marrow open with like a corkscrew. I mean, and these kids are wide awake, they just rub some numbing cream on them. Well, that's what I experienced with my son. So
too young,
yes,
it seems
yes,
like, to be going through these painful procedures. So you, Colleen, you came up with a way to make these procedures a little bit more tolerable for Martin. What did you decide to do?
Well, one day Martin announced at home that he wasn't going. He wasn't going to the place that would cure him. And he ranted and raged, and
like any normal child would do.
Right.
You're not taking me back there.
Right,
that hurts.
Because he was so compliant for a couple weeks until the fog lifted and we all knew what this meant. This meant it was going to hurt. This meant it was painful. Going to that hospital hurt, basically, was what was in his mind. Going to the hospital meant a cure. So I devised a plan of bribery, and I went to the toy store and I packed up my trunk full of toys, wrapped them all up, and I started to bribe my son at home in the morning with the wrapped toy. And everything changed. And you know, even at the time, the hospital didn't have a sticker or a sucker for these kids. So that was another side of the coin, but they had nothing. So I came up with something to try to soften the blow of this just horrible experience.
And Martin, that I'm sure made the world of difference to you, having something to look forward to at the end of these treatments versus just going in and getting a treatment and having no reward.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not even, it was the looking forward to the toy, but then also the second you get that toy, you forget what had just happened, and distraction during cancer treatment is just as important as getting, the treatment. So, yeah,
And
it
so-
changed everything.
So Colleen, what you did is you turned this plan of bribery into now a nonprofit organization that serves 9,000 children a month in 17 different states.
Yes,
So how did this happen?
Well, I was driving along in my car one day and I thought about all the kids at, it was called Christ Hospital, which is now today Hope Children's Hospital. But all of those kids, they were going in and out of that cancer treatment center without a sticker or a sucker, and it was just so dreadful. And I just imagined a program of bribery for those kids. That was fine. But the community got behind this idea, and they started supporting the vision and donating toys and donating money. And so we just went from one institution to another, to another, to another, to this day, we serve 9,000 kids in the nation monthly in 17 states.
Wow.
So, yes.
I'm sure you get a lot of different kinds of donations.
Yes.
What do you do if a PlayStation is donated and a box of crayons? Martin, how do you decide who gets what toy?
Well, the warehouse is set up with, along the walls are just bins filled with categories of boy toys, girls toys, electronics, and we just have a list of all the hospitals, the number of boxes they need, and we just pack a little bit of everything so that when it arrives at the hospital, it gets dispersed. Well, not dispersed, the kids get to come and choose whatever they want. So they get a little bit of everything, and then the kids make that decision.
And Colleen, what do you hope for the future of the Pediatric Oncology Treasure Chest Foundation?
Well, I would love to see the day that every institution serving children fighting cancer is a part of our program. We are the only charity on the front line when the little ones walk through the doors of the cancer treatment centers. Research is wonderful. My son's alive today because of research, but we are on the scene when the kids walk through the doors. And I would like to rewind a little bit. You brought up the word crayons. Crayons, if a box of crayons arrives at the Treasure Chest Foundation warehouse, it is grouped into a gift bag with coloring books and tiny toys. I mean, nothing leaves unless it's high-end, I'll call it expensive, high quality. This is not something you'd find at a dentist's office, if you will. I mean, this isn't a little box on a counter. This box is the size of a hope chest, full of high-end, expensive toys.
Well, I'm sure there are a lot of ways people can donate, either financially or with toys, and we'll get to that at the end of the show. But thank you so much for joining us today. I know that you are changing the lives of children drastically who are dealing with these treatments, and I'm sure there are a lot of grateful parents out there. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Katie.
All right, well, when we return, what's funny about social anxiety? How people are using innovative ways to keep anxiety at bay. Stay tuned.